Oh, it's preparing to. Looks like it's doing its thing. So for the sake of people that might be watching on Facebook Live, welcome to the Woden Valley Community Council meeting. Done our acknowledgement of country, and we will kick off. So with the Woden Valley Community Council, is going to have a big year, 2022. Welcome 2022, bring it on. We will continue our advocacy work, and we will launch into as many events as we can practically manage. So on the event side, that's the more interesting side. Well, the more fun side, perhaps. What we will be doing is the scooter comp is on Saturday, the 5th, down at the skate park. That is, I think this is our 3rd year in a row, maybe skip one for COVID last year. We did skip one, so maybe we held our first one 4 years ago. Then after that, on the 20th of March, we will have the Music by the Ponds again, 2nd year in a row. So we're trying to build a program of annual events. Last year's Music by the Pond was really terrific. So we'll build on that. And, you know, you have to say congratulations to Caroline for organising all the planting down there along the fence line, and Jude, who's her 2 I see, and down there planting and weeding and watering, and it's really looking fantastic. I reckon you do need to take some of those covers off. They're bursting out of them. Then we're going to have a couple of neighbourhood days on the 27th, Saturday the 27th. So there will be the ongoing Paradise put on by the mayor over there. So the 27th continue, and we will also have this year a Chifley party on Neighbour Day. And there are a few things Blade, our pop-up arts officer, has organised for the Woden Town Square. She's going to have a program of musicians playing at lunchtime in the town square. So fantastic. So we'll start advertising that too, and hopefully people can get down there and listen to that and enjoy it. We will also have one at Mawson. You know, everything's not completely finalised. We might have one around the solstice, perhaps. But a big one that we might have is in September, when the weather starts warming again, in Edison Park. So we're trying to move them around different parts of Woden. So I have one in Edison Park for the 60th birthday of Woden, because Curtin and Hughes were both officially gazetted to be suburbs in September 1962. So we thought that was a good enough reason to have birthday party. Emily there, Woden Community Service, is always very helpful with all these things. So I'll be talking to you, Emily, about our ambitions for events. There's the Lions mural that Emily and Woden Community Service is doing, a mural at Lions shops. And we hope to, I haven't spoken to the committee yet, but we hope to participate and work with you on that one, Emily. And we will, you know, try and organise a bit of a party there too. Lions, we haven't had one at Lions yet, and that needs a bit of love over there, I think. Mural would be great. So anyway, that's just a bit of a rundown, a brief rundown on what's happening on the event side of things, the fun side, and we will obviously advertise those things. We have I have started a list of events on our website, and so I will put all these in there so everybody knows when they are, and, you know, get them all organised. Anybody wants to help planting plants with Caroline, or weeding, or helping with events, please let us know, because it's fun to be involved in participating and organising those things. Still just letting a few people in. Okay, the advocacy side of our work. So unfortunately, the Hellenic Club can't come tonight because for the master plan, because they are, Ian, the CEO, is not well and can't come. So we're going to reschedule him for next month. But I think that's okay because it gives us just a bit of time to talk about things. So we'll have the Suburban Land Agency today and McDonald's. And the Suburban Land Agency is about primarily the land release program. And on it now is Section 7, which is the big car park south of the Hellenic Club, the one between the Hellenic Club and Grand Central. So it's a really strategic, significant car park for us, that block of land, because it is so central. And because we are looking like we are losing our town square's livability with the zoning for 28 stories around it. Like, we have raised this issue for years since the master plan. Well, it was 2015 it was finalised. We're on our 7th year of raising this issue, but no joy. So we will, if we cannot have the town square as the focal point for Woden town centre, where will it be? It's a really big issue. And that car park is an alternative. So it's on the land release program. We don't want to see it just sold to developers for more 16, 20-story towers that you can cram in there. If it goes the way of the old Tradies Club site and, 4 towers on 1 hectare, that's level of density, I just don't know where the people go. We've already got residents complaining about wind around the towers. The towers are so close together that people are looking in on each other. There's wind funneling through. So anyway, what has happened to date is there, but it's about opportunities for the future and planning it. So I thought, beginning of 2022, what we want to do is talk about we've been talking about this for a long time. Maybe we'll start doing some consultation and get some objectives and some principles for the town centre. So when, blocks are sold, we've got some principles that we can talk to. Like, for example, the Hellenic Club will develop their site, that big car park next to them. They've got plans for, a lot of underground parking, which is really terrific. Hotel, commercial building, for more public servants, big lifts, so it's sort of COVID friendly and modern. There's some good stuff. 2,500 seat stadium, performing arts area, fantastic. Food areas that I think what they said was thematic, things can change, but thematic, different nations' foods around, and cobble streets. So you feel like you're outside on these cobble streets, but you're not, you're inside. The whole thing is entirely enclosed. So what does that mean for our street life when you can't see any because it's all enclosed? And I think that how our clubs are developing, Woden is developing with Westfield, Hellenic Club and the Southern Cross Club, as these big internally faced things. Granted that Westfield has developed Eat Street on Bradley Street, and that's outside, and that's a good thing, but it's building on that and building that life through. So now's our time to say, do we want to be a place that has internally faced activity in big clubs, or do we want some street life as well? So on that note, would the Suburban Land Agency let me know when they are here? Because they probably didn't realise that they would be up so quickly. But given that we're at the beginning of the year, we have done this sort of thing before. My shared screen. All right. Well, can you see that? Yeah. Oh, if I do that, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the one with the out of the ACT planning strategy. So this is the 2018 planning strategy, where they have, these are the purple blobs are where they want to densify around the town centres, the group centres. So, and here the light rail alignment. So
they're Fiona, they're ready to go.
Who are?
They're there.
The Suburban Land Agency. Okay, brilliant.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Nora. So anyway, just a quick rundown on where things are at. The public transport all hubs into these major town centres. That there's the city centre and the town centres is what Canberra was based on, and that's where the public transport hubs into. If we have a look at Woden, that's Woden. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometre rings. So I'm always at pains to say that Woden Town Centre just doesn't service Woden. It is central in Canberra South. It services a really large area. People are moving through here because the work is all, a lot of the employment is in the city and in the Barton area with all the Commonwealth public servant jobs there. So a lot of people are moving through Woden to get to these employment areas, noting it's COVID and we're working at home at the moment, but in normal circumstances, a lot of the public transport hubs through Woden. And so I just want to show this because it demonstrates that 5 kilometres out picks up most of Western Creek. In fact, there's Western Creek suburbs, Warramanga and Western and Fisher, that are actually closer than Farrer and Torrens. Like Western Creek is very close to the Woden Town Centre. It is their town centre as well. I know they don't like me saying it, but it's true. And the inner south, it picks up Deakin, Yarralumla, and a lot of the inner south. And even down here, it comes into Canberra and Waniata. So that's a 5 kilometre ring around the Woden Town Centre. It services a really big area. So just going through our slides that we've been showing over the years shows that while it is servicing a big area, that the public transport hubs into it, that we have lost a lot of our amenity. And it can be also seen, the loss of amenity. These are the Amp It Up grants. Because we've lost our music venues. We really used to have a lot of music venues, but we don't anymore.
Woden Community Council meeting.
All right, okay.
Dinner won't be much longer.
Oh, that's okay.
So if you mute yourselves when someone else is talking. Last time I tried to mute everybody when this happened, and then I couldn't unmute you when you wanted to talk. So it's sort of best if you mute yourselves. But anyway, that just shows if we don't have the nightlife, the venues, we don't get the grants, the Amp It Up grants, because they go to where the music venues are and where the businesses are putting the music on. So I had another one that I just, what's that one? Oh, that gets onto section 7. Okay, this one is out of the territory plan. And it shows, if you can see, I don't know if you can see under there, but these are the active fronts by law in the territory plan. The territory plan is our planning law. So this is our town square. by law, it is supposed to be active fronts. This is North Walk where Doma Group has put in that fabulous Albi. Love going there. Alfresco dining facing north. It's great. So up here, section 7, which we're going to talk about on the land release program, up Bow Street, this is supposed to be active fronts. And this is the Hellenic Club's car park that they want to develop. So by law, it is supposed to be active. This is the boulevard, south of Grand Central. This is the tram area. This is Bradley Street down here, and this is Phillip, the courts, Copy Court and Dundas Court and Townsend Street. They're all supposed to be active fronts, and this is Corinna Street. So by law, I'm not sure who's responsible for compliance and who's responsible for overseeing the whole development. I did have a lovely slide about the whole loss of our recreation precinct, the zoning. I don't know why those ones haven't opened up, but you've seen them before, the zoning. So I won't muck around trying to get those to share, but I'm just making the point that we need, as the Chief Minister said in his statement of ambition in 2016, we need great design, planning, we need governance, and we need to collaborate. And I am not sure that everybody that's got a little, every directorate that's got a little piece of this pie, how well they are collaborating, because we can't see it. And I don't know who is responsible for oversighting the master plan, because the master plan said we would have a recreation precinct in the north, a recreation and living precinct in the north. Well, it is gone. The only thing that will be left will be the squash courts that is available to the public, and the Phillip Oval. Phillip Oval is gated. You can't get in there and kick a footy. So our town square is on its way out with all the zoning for 28 stories on its perimeter and the overshadowing and the wind. Not sure who would want to set up a cafe in there. So this is what we want to know. Got a couple of MLAs here. Who is responsible for making sure we get active fronts here? Because the Hellenic Club's plans do not provide for it. So anyway, if the land, these are the issues that we want to talk about, and we want to talk about, I've got some principles here. Putting people at the centre of urban design, live, work and play locally, like that sort of a philosophy, with jobs and major facilities, healthcare, education, cultural and recreational facilities centrally located so that we can all get there from the suburbs. Encourage social interaction by creating livable streets, where we want to be with people, because there's shops and alfresco dining along our streets that we can walk along. And our bush capital, of course, and, the waterways, of course, there's Yarralumla Creek. We'd love to do something to naturalise that again, or part of it, and making sure we're connected to the rest of Canberra and employment. So they're just a few things, but, we will want to go to the community and ask them, well, what do they want? So, Suburban Land Agency. On that note, where are you?
Irina Sharp from the Suburban Land Agency is here, and I've got a couple of colleagues that have joined the meeting as well. I can introduce Drew Jamison, who's the Senior Development Manager with the Urban Projects team, and will be the lead for the project you've been talking about, which is the Section 7 land release.
Okay, thank you.
We do have a presentation to provide, but happy to start with any questions if you have first, or we'll just launch straight into it.
Any questions first, or shall we have the presentation and then we will ask our questions? Probably might be better.
Sure. Just before I start the presentation, I'd just like to say I'm calling in from Hughes, and very happy to hear that birthday celebrations are coming up, and looking forward to that event taking place. I will fiddle with the buttons now to the presentation on. I'm sorry, I'm not so familiar with Zoom, so I need to find it.
And please put comments in the chat. If you have any views about anything, please put them in the chat, because we can save that chat at the end. And if you're on Facebook Live, if you want to put comments, I'm not sure how easy it is to save them from there, but certainly from the Zoom, we can save the comments and keep them as a record of what the community said.
Not working, Irene.
I know, I am clicking in the choose what to share window, but
Click on the arrow going up instead of the, not the one that goes like that, but the one that goes with the arrow. I have found helps. The one in the green box. You've got that.
It's at the bottom of the screen, Irina.
Natalie's jumping in. Are you? Okay.
I think it's share screen from the bottom. Is that one working, Irina?
I've got the share screen. I've pressed the Windows section. And I can see, oh, here we go. It did highlight it, so.
There we go.
And I will just, is that better?
Yes.
Perfect.
Wonderful. So yes, as an introduction, my name is Irina Sharp. I'm the Development Director of the Urban Projects team at the Suburban Land Agency. And I share your acknowledgement of the country, Fiona. Thank you for that. We're here really to sort of outline what is our role in government and how we fit into the big picture, and how we progress land release requirements that the government sets out for us. We probably did this a couple of years ago. I remember being in a meeting when we actually were able to meet face to face. But we will go through it again just in case some of the members may not have been there at the time. So we do have our own act, Suburban Land Agency Act, which is shared with our other counterpart, which is the City Renewal Authority. We also, on an annual basis, receive Minister's Expectations Letter. Now, our minister, the agency minister, is Minister for Housing and Suburban Development, which is Minister Yvette Berry. And in response to the Minister's Expectations Letter, our agency and our board prepare the statement of intent for every financial year. What is our core role? We respond to requirements of the Indicative Land Release Program, which is released every year with the budget. Last year, normally the ILRP, or the Indicative Land Release Program, is released in June together with the budget. As you know, for the last couple of years, that release has sort of been managed on the basis of COVID pandemic having some impact, and the budget and the ILRP were actually released in early October last year, so relatively recent. Together with the ILRP, we take into account other ACT government policies and objectives, as well as emerging policies and objectives. What I mean by that, in particular, you know, with the 2020 election, there have been a number of commitments made, and we are pursuing those commitments, even if they're not necessarily formed in formal policies or mandatory requirements from a statutory perspective. We do apply somewhat different community engagement methodologies, and it was really nice to hear you, Fiona, talk about all of the issues that you see exist in Woden Town Centre, and we will talk a little bit later on about the methodology that we use, which hopefully will address a lot of the concerns that you have, and of course the opportunity to contribute to the project that we are putting forward. As an agency, our vision is creating great places where communities thrive, and this of course applies across any kind of the project, whether it's in greenfield or in urban setting. We are particularly focused on a number of financial and non-financial objectives, but these are captured also through delivery of affordable housing, community housing, public housing, environmental and sustainability benchmarks for our developments, and healthy living for all of the residents in Canberra. How do we fit into the big sort of structure? Both Suburban Land Agency and City Renewal Authority are part of EPSDD, and while the acronym is just early to say, the full name of this directorate is of course the Environment Planning and Sustainable Development Directorate. They have their own minister, we have a different minister, but we sit under their portfolio. EPSDD has many functions, from strategic planning to establishment of the indicative land release program, to assessment of development applications and other statutory assessments. We respond to the indicative land release program, and our core role is the delivery of that program, which they set out. Now, they outline the sites which they would like us to release in particular financial years. We then look at those sites, their context, their planning requirements, the market sort of activities around the site itself, and we embark on community engagement to understand better that context from a more localised perspective. In some cases, we will pursue some level of design associated with the site itself, but ultimately it needs to result in a land sale. So if we are pursuing any kind of design development, we are in the same sort of space as anybody else. We need to submit those applications to the statutory component of the EPSDD and go through the process of it being reviewed and approved. So in terms of the indicative land release program and what it has on for Woden Town Centre, some time ago, it actually had for the next financial year, which is 22-23, it had 2 sites near the Cullum offices, which you can see on this diagram to the right of the Cullum Street. And they were earmarked for about 200 dwellings. The ILRP that was published in October last year replaced those sites with Block 1, Section 7. And that's perhaps sort of the indication of why the program is actually called Indicative Land Release Program, because sometimes certain circumstances or conditions on site warrant rethinking and changing the plan for release. So we are now looking at Section 7, Philip, and at this point in time, what we know is really what has been identified in the Woden Town Centre Master Plan, which we understand was undertaken some time ago, and the attributed zoning for the site, which is CZ2, a business zone, that there is a requirement to replace the 400 car parks and retain that quantum for public use in the future, and the desire for this site to be developed for a future large office or a mixed-use employment base that contributes to the town centre life. But under the CZ2, some residential is permitted as well. In addition to the Woden Town Centre Master Plan, there is a Phillip Precinct Map and Code, which has its own more specific requirements. At a very high level, we're indicating here that there is a need for a linear park, which faces Matilda Street, that there is a new road connection that needs to occur through the site, and that there is a consideration for a 14-storey building, but or buildings, but they can be up to 16 stories if they meet certain criteria in the territory plan. The only other interesting component is that the residential development is identified as facing Cullum Street, and there is some depth of 36 metres within which it needs to occur. So that is what we know about the site, but what we don't know is really the next step that we want to take, which is about consultation with Woden Valley community to learn what you know and what you would like to see happen and occur on this site. So what we are looking to do is create a place design brief together with the community, which will identify those desired outcomes for the site. The consultation is fairly broad. It will include a range of community groups and groups of different ages as well. We are currently shaping that community engagement process, but what I can say is that we have done that process a number of times quite successfully on other projects. And we're highlighting here that, for example, Canberra Brickworks project was one of the first ones. And each time as we go through this process, we'll learn from the communities and evolve the process itself a little bit more. Our second sort of successful project was the Gold Creek Homestead, together with the Gungahlin Community Council. And more recently, we undertook a fairly extensive engagement process with the Common community and the council itself on some of the releases that have been identified in their town centre. So we're looking to replicate that, and if you would like, Fiona, we can certainly share with you links where these place design briefs are kept and they're publicly available. If your council would like to have a look at what outcomes of that consultation look like. The whole purpose of that consultation is to develop a brief that will actually form part of the land sale. So we are telling the developers not just what the planning requirements are, but what the community desired outcome is as well. And it's embedded in the land sale document and the way we release the site. So, for example, for this site, we are planning to go out for tender and look for design proposals that respond to the place design brief we develop with you. We are very cognizant that right now, at this very point in time, you've got quite a lot of projects happening in the same space, and we're kind of coming in at the tail end of it. And it is a challenge, I guess. It's a challenge for us as well to ensure that we are coordinating with our colleagues who are doing the CIT project, the light rail, the hospital project, the bus interchange. And one that we haven't actually noted here is the community hub that is also earmarked near Cullum offices. So there's a lot happening. We understand that, and we'll tap into that as much as we can. But we would also like to work with you directly on the place design brief for this specific site. and we will certainly utilise the existing way of communicating under the Woden Renewal banner and the Your Say website that's being used. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at. But what we were hoping to do is sort of just highlight at this meeting what our intent is, and of course come back perhaps next month or the month after and outline a little bit more how the community engagement and the place brief engagement will roll out, and get some input back from you on that process.
Thanks, Irina. That's a good rundown right at the beginning of the process, so that's fabulous. Thank you. I have one question, just curiosity. Why has this site, going to go through this process with you, as you've outlined? Why haven't the other sites, like the car park that the Melrose is going to be on, or because that was a public car park that was sold too?
Sorry, I'm trying to think of the car park. You are talking about the car park on Melrose.
Yeah, the one opposite Alexandra and Albemarle that was ripped up years ago.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess at the time, that particular site was part of an estate development plan that was approved and then constructed in that area, and that was the remaining site from that process. So it kind of has gone through its own public consultation process associated with the estate development plan. Look, I guess in retrospect, we could have done something similar there, but it just seemed like the decisions have already been made about what that site should be and could be in the future through that earlier planning approval process.
Yeah, I know. Fair enough. I note though that there was a 2013 estate development plan for the bus interchange too. Got some great pictures that came out of that, and so that all changed. Things can change. If there's any political will to change it, they will. So it's a matter, I guess, of where there's opportunities to put them forward and hope that we can get better outcomes. So I did have another question, but it slipped my mind. Does anybody else have any questions about this whole thing? Jude? Yeah, put your little hand up, your golden hand up, and I can scroll through the participants and see who's got their hand up. Jude, take it away.
Oh, hi, Irina. Thank you for that. Look, it's not really a question. It's just a desperate plea, really. I've lived in this area for on and off for 20 or 30 years, just sort of indirectly. I was a nurse at the Canberra Hospital. I'm retired now. And being a cardiac nurse for many years, it's my belief that this is a sort of nursing analogy, that we don't have a beating heart of Woden. You know, there's no central community space for people to get together, or for streets life, or any atmosphere. There's no atmosphere anywhere in Woden. We've lost the town square that used to have a bit of life. It's dead as a doornail now. And every time we see a new development go up, we have less and less option to find that one place that we're all trying to somehow conjure up, but it's just disappearing before our eyes as every year goes past. And I'm just wondering whether there is any big vision for some kind of, a central beating heart in that particular block that you've been talking to us about today, and whether there's, what's the general plan from above, rather than all these little, mini bits and pieces that we're getting from government these days about towers here and little roadways there. Is there a central vision for anything that involves a beating heart for Woden? Because this is just about our last option.
I feel it's a tricky territory for me to speak on behalf of the Planning Directorate. and perhaps they should be invited next time to talk about the vision for Woden. But our understanding is that we are picking up on the results of the master planning process, which was consequently reflected in the Phillip map and code documentation, and is now reflected in the indicative land release program. Now, setting aside planning, I guess where we're coming from and coming to you with is the opportunity to develop the vision for this site that goes beyond just what planning tells us we can achieve here. Now, we're not saying we can change the planning, but that vision of a place at a pedestrian level, as you're walking through the site, as you're experiencing the buildings and spaces around, we would like to know what that means to you. And we can build that into the future design that will be presented for this site. So I guess we're turning it around a little bit. We're not necessarily relying entirely on master planning vision. We're coming to you as the residents who are experiencing this site on a regular basis, and are going through a range of workshops and creative sort of interactions to derive a place brief that we can give to design teams to come up with something better.
Caroline.
Thank you. Mine's I suppose, a bit more self-interested question. That's not the only thing in the land release program, of course. And you've got Athlon Drive corridor, and it's a few years out. Could you, and I will admit I'm someone who lives quite close to that, and it's going to make a huge difference. Can you tell us any more about what you're actually planning to release there and when?
Sure. So the reason, I guess, again, why we didn't outline all of the years in the indicative land release program in this particular presentation is because there are some projects on those future years that are still in development and may move around. I mean, you may have noticed that Athlon Drive corridor has been through a number of years on the indicative land release program and currently sitting in 24-25 from memory. And as we learn more about what is happening in that space, perhaps it will move again, perhaps it will move closer. What I can tell you at this point in time is, of course, that Athlon Drive itself is very important, and there are a number of other agencies working on what the duplication of Athlon Drive will look like, what light rail inclusion would look like, what is happening with the creek and that stormwater drain, what can we do with it, and how can we incorporate it into the transport corridor. And quite honestly, there are quite a lot of ideas on the table at the moment before we can come along and say, well, this is what we're going to do in terms of the land release. So it's a very much in coordination space between different agencies and trying to resolve the transport component before the land release component can be looked at.
Thank you, Irina. Chris?
Hi, I'm from Curtin. I've been looking at some of the planning restrictions, the precinct code, which you referred to say how many stories would be allowed at this site, and need to retain the car parking, which is already there, the number of car park spaces. And they seem to be in the precinct code, so I guess they have to be enforced by the planning directorate when any applications go in.
Yes.
So there seemed to be some flexibility, and you referred to the building being possibly 14 or 16 stories. And one of the things that's happened around the Woden area, the town centre, is that there are building height limits with an optional 4-story addition. And everybody seems to ask for the 4 stories and get it. It seems to me that if you're talking community in this site, that not allowing that extra 4 stories, in fact, kicking back on that option would be something that you as the land release agency and us as the community could equally say, so that the Bow Street is kept more open, so that the setbacks at the ground level and the upper stories don't shade it over as much to make it less of a canyon. And that gives some hope to your idea of having an active community along that street. Whether it's the hub of the town centre or whether it's just a reasonably good active street, another Eat Street even, would be a start. Can you talk to that, of saying if those are the kinds of restrictions that you might be able to put on?
So at this point, with the experiences that we've had in terms of development of the place design briefs, and in particular, the most successful one that we've done last year, which was with the Belconnen Town Centre community. What the place design brief really outlines, and this is quite important, is what you don't want to occur on site. And then it outlines what you would like to occur on site, and also outlines what would be the successful outcome for the site. It really gives a good description to the future design team of which path to take. And what we're talking about is a very specific release methodology. So what we're looking for is putting together a set of tender documents, and we will release this site through a process we refer to as request for tender. The tender itself, thus far, for all of the projects that we've done in this exact same way, has included the place design brief and a weighted criteria for it at 50%. So the design of the site and the response by the interested party is really highly valued, and they're assessed against that. What occurs through the evaluation process of those tenders is what emerges is a preferred tender. And if successful in negotiating the sale with us, their actual design that has been identified as the preferred tender is embedded in the contract going forward. And they are required, and we stay on board throughout the duration of the development application preparation and approval. So we stay on board to ensure that what they told us in their tender document actually eventuates in terms of the development approved documents.
Okay, Dione's got a question, but before we move over onto that side of the road, Dione, just want to ask Irina, we've got the district level planning underway. We've got new legislation, got the district level planning. In the Legislative Assembly, somebody is doing, or the Greens asked for a report, a review of all the recreation facilities across Canberra. So, you know, there's things in the go. So is there any opportunity to get the outcomes of some of these first before we launch into what we do with this site? Because sadly, like when we talk about Belconnen, I don't know, perhaps we're in a different situation because Belconnen's already got art centres and theatres and basketball stadiums and pools and a university, and, you know, they've got stuff already. So perhaps it's easier for them to look at individual blocks. But for us, because we don't have any of that stuff, it's very hard to do that piecemeal thing because we're missing opportunities. And that particular block is so strategically critical to us. And the problem is with the way that the interchanges unfolded with the light rail and the buses, and it's going to be so heavily public transport, buses parking, buses moving through, like there's 18 bus stops, 9 on each side, buses moving through, trams in the middle, more buses moving, more buses stop. It's busy and it's tight, really tight. It's going to be a barrier between one side of Callum Street and the other side. And so we've got all this, the town centre is basically on the west side of Callum Street. Yet we're going to put the community centre on the east side, and it's going to be disconnected by this pretty serious light rail bus interchange. So can't we reassess this and put the community centre on section 7 in the middle, where the people are for the town centre? Like, there's so many better opportunities here. And just our master plan has failed us, frankly, and we need to review it before we do anything with this really critical block. Anyway, I don't know how we progress that, because we've tried for so long.
Look, the best that we can do from this forum, we can certainly take on board what you're saying and relay it to our colleagues at EPSDD, who are responsible for master planning and district planning, and let them know that there is a concern in this area, and perhaps the discussions need to take place. Our agency is not the right agencies to take that on. We don't have that role in terms of revisiting planning conditions that have been established by the Planning Directorate. But we will certainly take your points to them.
Yeah, because my calculation is we've got about 20,000 people moving into this area. It will be one of the highest density areas in Australia, after the square kilometre in Melbourne and Woolloomooloo, and I have to check the population. I did it a few weeks ago. A couple of places in Sydney, higher density, but with us, we're 0.6 of a square kilometre, and with 20,000 people in that 0.6, it is seriously high density. And we really need to have a look at the parking, the traffic congestion. There's a whole range of things that need to be looked at if we're going to bring 20,000 people into 0.6 of a hectare, square kilometre. And I just can't see that this is being planned properly. And it's not putting the people first. Anyway, I don't know how we raise it. We've raised it. I've written like so many times. It's just falling on deaf ears. It's heartbreaking, the whole thing.
And I would say it's still worthwhile us continuing the engagement process that we've suggested, even if it is for this particular site as opposed to broader town centre. Because I think if these are real concerns, they will come through this engagement process, and we will capture it in the documentation that will fall out from it.
Rollo, what do you got to say about that?
Sorry, Irina, I don't agree with your perception of the process. The process that you have outlined is about a design brief for a building. It's not a design brief for a space, which has options such as the sporting and community activities that Fiona has articulated so eloquently.
I'll take that on board. I think it will be worthwhile for us to come back perhaps next month and outline a little bit further what the place design brief entails. You will find that it actually talks very little about design of a built form. It certainly does give reference to what would be acceptable and what would not be acceptable, but is a lot more concerned at the ground floor pedestrian level and experience of the place, and what the place should include other than street lights and benches and trees. So it does have a lot more to it, and we would be happy to come back and share with you the work we've done before.
You know, when it comes to the ground floor, what I have noticed happening is you can't help but look at other things. You travel around Australia, you see things. Even I go to the city, our city, and we've got Verity Lane there, the new Verity Lane that's got the new decking in the alleyway. It's got, you know, eateries, half a dozen eateries through to Northbourne Avenue, a bar in the middle, entertainment upstairs. It's really terrific. But what we're getting, our W2 on the Woden Town Square, it's got such a perfect opportunity to take the whole ground floor of that building and turn it into a Verity Lane type thing with half a dozen eateries and a bar, and so it can spill out al fresco dining into the town square, music and dance, like start getting something happening. Do you know what we're getting? We are getting a veneer of commercial that's about as deep as a car park. So you won't be sitting in there mingling with your friends. It'd be like one of those hole in the wall type things where you get your stuff and, oh, well, go and sit in the shadows of the town square. I don't know where you go and sit anymore. And then you look at Grand Central, the south side of that, those tiny little commercial boxes there. Nobody's leased them. Who's rushing to lease them? They're awful. So we get another.
Would you allow us to come back next month and share a little bit further the principles and the outcomes we've achieved in previous engagement processes, and sort of gauge, I guess, from that conversation whether that lifts the bar and gives the opportunity for a better outcome? Can we do that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, oh, look, we want to work with you,
Thank
Irina.
you.
We do, but, you know, we're just having our say of what we've noticed and the pain we've been through over the years and years of trying to advocate and just hitting a brick wall. Nobody wants to listen at all to our cries for better outcomes in our town centre. Sounds like it's your town centre too, Irina.
I know, and I can perhaps fix it for section 7, but I can't fix it for other parts. And I guess that's the limitation that we might have to contend with in terms of what SLA can deliver, but we're happy to push boundaries and happy to reach out to our colleagues in other parts of government and talk further on what the plans are in the future.
Thank you, Irina. Well, that is good of you, and we will definitely, you know, we want to be positive about this. We want great outcomes. We want to be positive. We don't want to be negative, but sometimes when you raise your issues, you sound like you're being negative, but you've got to raise them.
I totally understand, and there are a lot of issues. I can certainly understand as a Woden Town Centre resident. So trying our best from SLA's perspective to bring in something new and do a better outcome than what we've seen so far.
Thanks, Irina. All right, well, we'll move over to Dione's. She's moving across Callum Street. She's hit the lights, the button. She's waiting for the buses and the trams to go through, for the light to turn green so she can get across the road and get over to the area that she's talking about around Callum offices.
Thanks, Fiona. I'm just curious because I live on City Street and I care quite passionately about what's happening, and I'm not necessarily in agreement with the way the government's going, and I'm more in line with the kind of principles and desires that Fiona, as the Woden Valley Community Council President, has continued to advocate on. So my question is about the blocks to the north and the west of Callum offices. You indicated that they are basically, I don't know, is gazetted the word for 200 dwellings. Can you elaborate more on that? Because I know nothing and I'd like to know more, please.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And look, I hope I'm bringing you the good news. The slide that I showed, I indicated that those 2 blocks, which were previously identified for land release and sale to the market, have been removed from the indicative land release program, and section 7 has been put in its place. So we are not looking in those two blocks, north and west of Cullum offices, for a future sale. They're no longer on the program.
So, Irina, what does that mean? That they just remain undeveloped?
As is, for the time being, yes.
Okay, so but presumably they would be remediated because there's a lot of serious roadworks happening at the moment, and they look pretty ugly, and presumably they'll kind of be tidied up and made a bit more beautiful. I mean, if they're not going to be released, is this an opportunity for more public recreation spaces? Can we expand, Edison Park across the road? I mean, God, we need green spaces that are open to the public. I mean, is that a possibility? I'll mute myself now.
Perhaps that's a question for Fiona. All I'm saying is those two sites are not on the indicative land release program for this year or the future 4 years at this point in time, as the publication stands from last October.
Can I put in a rather cynical comment? Do you know what? Sounds to me like what I would call classic geocon. What will happen is they might have come off the land release program for the moment, 200 apartments. I reckon geocon could squeeze heaps more in there. I reckon they'll come back on the land release program in the next year or two, or whenever. We've got a lot going on. As you said, we've got the Melrose, we've got 4 towers there, we've got 4 towers at Wover, we've got the Shard or whatever that's called now. We've got N12 is approved. We've got more, the Oaks coming. We've got a lot of towers coming. We're up to 30 towers. We've earmarked 30 residential towers already. So once we've built, another 25 towers or so, then they'll say, oh, what about those blocks that we took off the land release program a few years ago? Let's put them back on. And I reckon we could squeeze in a lot more apartments. Anyway, that's the way it seems to go to me. I think sometimes if you've got 6 stories, you're like, oh, thank God, put 6 stories, because if it gets delayed and it comes back later, it's going to be twice that or more. So anyway, densification is happening big time in Woden. But the problem is there is not enough planning and rigour around it, and there's not enough focus on the people that live there. Anyway, so did anybody else? Oh, I just thought there is more on the land release program. If I can just, why is it so? I have, oh, here, try this one. Oh, what happened? Did it disappear? I got a bit ambitious? I think I clicked too many times. Oh, can you see that? Territory plan with a little bit of green. No? It obviously didn't work. Hang on.
It has.
You can see it?
It has.
Oh, okay. So anyway, that is my understanding of the land release program at Mawson. So there's over here the car park, the club car park, and that's going commercial. A lot of people will ask us where the Audi's going to go. And then down here, section A, which is between the tennis courts and Athlon Drive, that is going as well. And I sort of think with Mawson, Southland's the same, and Coolman Court too, frankly. That batch of master plans that were done at that time, none of them considered the people or good outcomes, because these clubs are going, okay, so we'll end up with one club over here. The Mawson club seems to be thriving. Like when you've got a core area that connects things, so you've got Southlands connected to the playing fields, and you put buildings in the middle of it, just blocks it off. It happened at Torrens. You've got the Torrens shops and you've got the community hall, and then there's residents in between. It's disconnected. And I just see that this is going to be the same thing happening here. If you put dwellings in here, you disconnect Southlands from the playing fields. And, you know, there's so much space to put apartments all around and down Athlon Drive, that you don't need to disconnect the playing fields, the community area from the shops. That's my 2 bucks worth on that one. Anyway, what do you know? What's any views of what's happening with Southlands, and any talk of Audi going anywhere in Woden? Marina?
Sorry, Fiona, is that a question for me?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of Aldi. Perhaps if there is such a conversation, again, there is a process that EPSDD administer, which is a direct sale process, and perhaps Aldi is approaching them direct. But from an indicative land release program, our role is to put sites to the market for a competitive sale. So depending on how the structure of the sale is prepared, perhaps Aldi will bid. We certainly are not aware of any direct arrangements with Aldi at this point in time.
Okay.
Sharp, the name is, yeah.
I just note too, though, like as far as planning goes, the 4 stories here, we've got 4 stories down here. This is Southland's little square here. It's 4 stories through here. It's going to take out the sun of that little square, which is a real shame. And I have to say congratulations to Chris Johnson for their efforts in Curtin, because they got a 5-metre solar fence around there, apart from the 5 stories on the southwest. But the north and the east and the west side, you've got a 5-metre solar fence, which is hopefully 1 story. But we were not so lucky in Mawson. Like, you know, there's such anomalies in everything. Like, how come Curtin gets to advocate so strongly and so well, and they get their 5-metre solar fence, yet Southlands, another great group centre, it's got 2 stories there, and then potentially 4 stories down this western side, and yeah, 4 stories all down there. Like, for a tiny little square, that is a significant height. And you've got the height all around. You've got densification everywhere. Leave us with our little squares, please. Anyway, I know that's an EPSDD thing, not yours, Irina, but it's more advocacy for us ongoing. So has anyone got any further questions of Irina? All right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And Fiona will reach out to you again with perhaps a proposal for the next catch up and what we can present to the Community Council in a month.
All right. And maybe we'll write to Yvette Berry this time and say, help. See what, if anything comes back. All right. Thank you, Irina.
Sure.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Fiona.
All right. It's difficult on Zoom to see who's here, so we might as well go, if McDonald's are here or Canberra Town Planning. Are here.
Yeah, can you hear me, Fiona? Sorry.
I can, Josh.
Yeah, Josh, how are you? Josh Heffernan from McDonald's. We also have Brad Carroll online, who's our local friend operator.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure. Thank you for the invite. I will just quickly share screen if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Should hopefully be. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Perfect. All Well, yeah, as I just said, thank you very much, Fiona, for extending the invite to Michelle at Canberra Town Planning at the tail end of last year, and the opportunity to meet with everyone and discuss our development proposal on Hindmarsh Drive at Phillip. As I said, sorry, there we go. As I said, so I work for McDonald's Corporate. I'm a development manager who looks after the ACT region. And we've got Brad on the line with us, who is obviously a Canberra local and operates the Manuka, Molonglo Valley, Western, and the Woden McDonald's in the Westfield, on the other side of Hindmarsh Drive. Brad, I'll let you do a little bit of an intro on yourself if you want.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Welcome. Thanks, Fiona, for the invite tonight. I guess just as a bit of an introduction for the group, I'm a local Canberrian. I started my McDonald's journey when I was 14 in Wagga. Grew up in Wagga and have been in Canberra for the last 6 years, along with my wife and our 3 children. We operate 4 McDonald's restaurants in Canberra. We have a staff of a little over 500 now, since we've been here in Canberra building our restaurants up. Our journey started with Manuka and the Woden restaurant back in 2015. And since that, we've purchased Western and we opened Molonglo Valley on Cotter Road in 2019. We employ across our 500 staff a diverse range of Canberra locals, from school and university students to parents, giving them flexibility with their children, long-term unemployed, and also people with disabilities that may not have had the opportunity to be employed in the past. We have a payroll of about $5.5 million annually that's spent majority in the local area and the local Woden Valley area. A majority of our payroll is disposable, and it's heavily invested back both in real estate in the local area and in many of the local businesses that make our community such a vibrant place to live. Our organisation is operated out of Phillip. Our office is in Phillip, and we've been here for the last 5 years operating and supporting the local businesses within the Phillip area and also in the Woden area through local cafes, mechanics, you name it, we support it, and our children go to school in the local area as well. Our business is predominantly drive-through, so for those of you who don't know, 80% or thereabouts of our business goes through our drive-through. So it's predominantly convenience related when consumers need it. And between our 4 restaurants, we serve approximately 40,000 customers per week, which is a large number and a significant business within the Western Creek and Woden Valley area. A strong mantra of mine is giving back to the community and being embedded in the community, and a big advocate of giving back to the people and the locals that support us. And we do this through numerous things, through sponsorship of Canberra Raiders and GWS Giants, I guess at a top tier level, but more importantly at a grassroots level through sporting organisations like Canberra Cycling Club and Woden Valley Rams, to name a few, as well as also other groups in the arts, giving back to Culture Break and being their major sponsor and supporter, as well as other charitable organisations in Canberra through Ronald McDonald House, Lifeline and Men's Link, to name a few. It's really important that, I guess, from our perspective, that McDonald's is seen as a local business. We operate predominantly on the south side of Canberra where we live and operate, and our kids and our family live as well. And I guess it's important that for the group to also understand that all McDonald's restaurants are locally owned in Canberra. We're all family and local businesses owned by 3 families. We're very much passionate about Canberra and giving back. So a lot of people see McDonald's and the Big M and think that it's a multinational, it's a business that's coming in that's not going to give back. I guess I just wanted to show tonight that we're a face, we're local, we're Canberra. We employ a vast majority of Canberra's citizens, and between the 22 odd restaurants in Canberra, there's about 2,500 people that call McDonald's home and as their major source of employment. So With that, Josh, I'll hand back to you, and thanks again for the opportunity to be involved tonight, Fiona.
Great, thanks very much, Brad. So yeah, I'll just go through a high-level overview of the proposal. I'm sure a number of you have probably seen it on the Planning Authority's website. It did go on notification before the end of the year last year. Obviously, had logic behind why we've looked at this particular site, and then we had some questions that were sent through to Canberra Town Planning from Fiona. So thank you for sharing those prior to this, which we can address in detail here. But please feel free to jump in either via your microphone or through the chat function, and I'm happy to answer any chat questions at the end. So in terms of the development itself, this will be a development between the McDonald's, which obviously we will occupy, and a metro service station. In terms of location, obviously we know Hindmarsh Drive is a major road in Canberra, a major arterial road that services a lot of the Woden Valley region. Given the number of vehicles that use Hindmarsh Drive every day, there will be minimal impact to the existing road network. The site is located within the Phillips Service Trades precinct, so there's obviously minimal impact to residential. We're surrounded by other commercial and industrial and obviously retail businesses across the road with the Westfield. As Brad said, drive-through makes up over 80% of our business now. That's escalated. It was always sort of roughly 70%. That's gone up quite significantly in the COVID era. So the dual lane drive-through will accommodate up to 15 vehicles at a time. So there's a very minor chance of that ever disrupting the flow of the traffic in the site. There's 6 fuel dispensers, which you can see in the image, the render on the left, via the access the building via the undercover canopy. We'll have 4 bicycle racks at the front of the development, which you can see there in the top image as well, in front of the red blade there. 17 car spaces in addition to 2 waiting bays. We'll be installing solar on the rooftops, as we do with all our new buildings that we build across the country. There's increased landscaping on site, which acknowledging that's not shown in the renders, but I do have the landscape plan towards the back of the presentation, which we can look at. And one of the comments from Fiona prior to the meeting was a lack of rapid charging stations for electric vehicles. And that's something that we can definitely look at. We'll consult with Metro, who are obviously occupying the additional space on the left, so we can look into that with them and see where we might be able to implement that if feasible. That's just a high-level overview of the development. So one of the main points that came up was congestion and parking, and this is one that we're very well versed in. It comes up with most of our DAs, particularly as we just said, 80% of our trade comes through drive-through. So this is obviously Canberra planning is a little bit different to New South Wales planning. Very few sites on major roads. We're often located within group centres or group centre locations. The benefit of this site obviously is that the ingress and egress is available via an existing service lane. So we're not having cars flying down or having to use any sort of deceleration lane. They're turning into the service lane and accessing the site via that. So there'll be minimal impact to the existing roadwork. The development itself is fully compliant with all parking rates for a McDonald's and a service station. In terms of swept paths, our traffic consultant from CBRK has been doing our work for upwards of 20 years. But in terms of, we've run all swept paths for any cars accessing the sites, for our delivery vehicles across a variety of different sizes. And we've also run the swept paths on fuel tankers with no issues identified. The 80% trade is there, as Brad touched on earlier. The traffic study itself indicates an increase of roughly 50 vehicles an hour along Hindmarsh Drive. Obviously, given the vast numbers of traffic that use that equates to less than 1% increase for the traffic numbers that are on Hindmarsh Drive. And in terms of loading docks, we have to try and keep it separate. The whole point of this is we don't, obviously for us, if we have our tenant in Metro getting in the way of our drive-through, that then has flow-on effects both to our operations, but also the free and easily, I guess, flow of traffic throughout the site. So we've got separate loading docks to avoid any potential conflicts, and they, as always, are to occur outside non-peak periods so that we don't have any flow-on effect. And the fuel tankers will drop off fuel along the front of the fuel canopy there. And we've negotiated with Metro that is to occur between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. And that's purely just to avoid, obviously, they'll have an effect on the fuel bowsers, but it's also just to ensure that we're not having issues and cars spilling out onto the service lane and onto Hindmarsh Drive. In terms of the comment around lack of access to Divine Court, this was one that we investigated in the very, very early days of us looking into the site. And for complete transparency, we would have loved to have been able to turn the building 90 degrees and run the drive-through along the western boundary. The main reason for that was it would have put our building out on the corner, it would have increased the visibility of our brand, and it would have made the site flow really well. The primary reason that we weren't able to have the building turned that way just arose due to the width of the site. So allowing for appropriate circulation of vehicles, the fuel tanker would have had to have pulled up, and it would have blocked, would have basically blocked everything, would have blocked the loading dock, would have blocked the drive-through, would have blocked the fuel bowsers. So in terms of actual vehicular access off Divine Court, it unfortunately, despite our best efforts, wasn't possible. What we have done, obviously there's an existing pedestrian walkway along the eastern boundary on the left-hand side of the image there. So we're proposing pedestrian connectivity through there. Obviously people coming from, there's a number of adjoining car parks, car sales yards and other businesses in the area. So we've proposed a pedestrian walkway from that eastern boundary into the site. Obviously, we want to try and encourage that as much as possible. Whilst we do have vast majority of sales to that, we still have a large amount of people who walk in and try and use the amenity. And to the landscaping and the tree canopy piece, important to note the existing street trees will be retained as part of the development proposal. We're not proposing touching those. They're obviously very nice, well-established trees. The current ex-Magnet Mart site, obviously doesn't have any landscaping currently. It's pretty much built boundary to boundary with the exception of the customer parking along the western boundary. So the proposal you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see my arrow, but we're proposing 3 new trees in the corners, and then obviously extensive landscaping throughout where appropriate and where possible. As I touched on earlier, in terms of trying to offset our carbon footprint and reduce it as much as possible, we're installing solar panels on all new buildings. A recent example locally, whilst not in Canberra, on the border in Jerrabomberra, was one where we installed solar. And just an important quality here as well, as a large corporation, we feel that we do have a bit of a responsibility to do our bit with reducing the use of single-use plastic. So now across the Macca's system, we don't use any plastic single-use straws, and we're working towards obviously eliminating single-use plastic in its entirety. We're trialling a number of sustainability methods down in Victoria. We opened our 1,000th store in Australia recently, and there's a number of initiatives there. So as simple as ground coffee beans going back to the fields where we grow our lettuce. A number of these initiatives, which obviously we're constantly learning and adapting and looking to adopt in buildings moving forward. So that was a high-level presentation on the points that were raised prior, but I can see there's a few questions in the chat function, but happy to answer any questions that people have as they come up. Okay, so in terms of Paul's Home Centre, it was the old Magnet Mart site. Magnet Mart moved out probably becoming up close to for, I'd say, 18 months, 2 years now, since they've moved out. There was a pop-up food truck tenant there for a while, just on a month-to-month arrangement, who've since moved in across to opposite the Woden Westfield. I believe Brad Grace Monkeys have moved. But
correct.
it is,
you know, Bradley Street.
Yeah. But yes, it is the ex-Magnet Mart site. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. I always have questions.
Yeah.
What's the relationship between McDonald's and the Metro, like the convenience store, the petrol, like how does that all work? Because you're putting the DA, it's McDonald's, but then you talk about them as if there's some other thing or entity.
So there's no partnership, I guess you could call it. McDonald's in this instance will buy the land, get the DA approval and build, and we have Metro as our tenant for the land, for that part. So we'll complete the base build works, and then they will do the fit out of their own internal premises. We're running the DA, obviously because it's the building, that building. But yeah, in terms of the legal relationship, for want of a better term, they are our tenant essentially. And this is the first site that we've done with Metro. We're not affiliated with any brands. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, just about the traffic numbers, the congestion, the parking, like this is a broader issue across Woden due to the densification that is happening not only in the town centre but also around in the burbs. They are all being densified as well. So when you say an extra 50 cars an hour, I think you said, or whatever that number was, I don't know that it's so much the issue being the extra cars generated by McDonald's and the convenience store, but it's that densification and using forecasts that say, all right, well, given the zoning, we envisage the population growth to be, you know, like we'll have X amount of people in 2030. And how does the whole congestion and parking thing stack up with that forecast population as opposed to what currently is, if that makes sense? Because if we do it on current population, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse as the towers are built and the people come. And it's not got really not a lot of places to walk to. They'll be able to walk to your McDonald's, but outside of that, a lot of them get in their cars to go elsewhere. Because you've heard it, I don't know if you heard our conversation before about the lack of, you know, recreation and cultural facilities around. So everyone gets in their cars and goes elsewhere. So
Fiona, I guess from a local perspective, obviously having traded in the area and know the area intimately, the flow of traffic, you know, even as the business evolves and grows with time, as will Woden and the Phillip area in particular, I guess, the drive-through and the way that our business evolves and the convenience and also the delivery model, it takes a lot of that congestion out of the, I guess, the concern. I look at, you know, I look at Molonglo Valley, for instance, and it was opened in 2019 and designed probably around 2017. The footprint that we've got there and the size of the car park and the size of the dining room is probably about 300% too large for what's actually required, due to the fact with how the world's adapted and changed, especially over the last 2 years with COVID, but also to how we're exiting out of that too and consumers are behaving. So, you know, Josh talks about a 1% increase with the traffic flow from the traffic assessor and the traffic, you know, planner that's been doing this for 20 to 30 years. That percentage would only go south as time evolves and the business grows, as well as Woden growing as well. You know, you talk about the towers and so forth, and you look at how people interacting, especially the youth and that sort of 20 to 30-year-old age demographic that's moving predominantly into the apartments. A lot of them are using rideshare. They're using e-scooters, bikes, walking. A lot of them don't have cars. So I think the increase in traffic with this particular development, I don't think it's going to add any further complications to what's happening in Woden in the greater area.
And
I think I heard it mentioned earlier. Sorry, Fiona.
no.
I heard it mentioned earlier. Obviously, the light rail from the CBD as well will obviously provide a lot of transport, public transport amenity. Obviously, we've seen the success of it in Gungahlin, so it's just going to bring more and more people hopefully off the road. Yeah, acknowledge that there's a lot of density coming from Woden, particularly to the north.
Maybe we'll just let the light rail slip through to the keeper.
I'll
go there.
Clear.
One other thing, so there will be, well, Phillip is zoned for 5 and 6 stories pretty much. Townsend Street is 6 stories and the Colby and Dundas Courts are zoned for 5 stories. So that's going residential as well. So can you have a path on your eastern side, like a path that connects Phillip to Hindmarsh Drive and crossing over into the plaza, like access through there? Looks like a good spot to have access. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think if you look at Josh's diagram, knowing the site currently, I think Broadburger have got their outdoor seating stools along that current walk through between the court and Hindmarsh. Yeah, go back a couple of slides, Josh.
That's interesting.
If you go back to your first slide, it actually shows the walkway. Yeah, that one when it comes up. Yeah, so if you look it to the left, go back one. Go to the artist render. Yeah.
Working? Oh, the aerial.
It's really slow. Yeah, go to the aerial one. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. There, this one.
Yeah, that one. So if you look to the left of the side, I think it doesn't depict where Broadburger's food caravan and the little coffee van that's there now, but you see the walkway from the where Josh is pointing now. I think Broadburger have got their outside stools and umbrellas along there at the moment, but there's really good pedestrian flow between Phillip and the Woden area and into the Westfield Town Centre.
Okay. Oh, just have to get my bearings a bit straight here. Is the bottom right hand bit of that picture the big Hindmarsh Melrose intersection?
Correct. So you've got so that's John McGrath.
Yeah.
Ford dealership.
Yeah. All right. Oh, well, I guess one of the major things, the feedback that we've had to date is about the electric charging and the need for another fossil fuel petrol station. So if you could have a look at the opportunities to put rapid charging in. Actually, I just drove down to Melbourne and I forget which servo I stopped at along the way, but there were a bank of 4 rapid charging things just there, and then I saw them again on the highway and I was like, wow, it's happening, they are coming. So if there's any opportunity, they didn't take up much room, like they're just there.
No, they're not. They're very compact. It's certainly not a space thing. I think absolutely the numbers of EV vehicles or EVs being sold year on year speaks volumes.
That would be good. All right. Anybody else got any questions?
Perhaps you
Been up.
Yeah.
My hand's been up for a while. Hello.
Oh, sorry. I haven't. Sorry, I have not been looking at the chat. All right, you go. Is that you, Nora? You go.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Just I have got a question, but just a comment about the rapid charging. It should actually go into solar cars with battery backup so that the expenses of rapid charging stations aren't necessary. But we've been trying to push on that. Hopefully that people will start listening because that's our money. we can't afford all these expensive charging stations when there's alternatives. But the question is, what's actually on that site at the moment where you're proposing to put McDonald's?
So it is the ex-Magnet Mart site. It's the building's currently vacant, has been for over 18 months.
Is there vegetation, so forth on there? Wildlife? Nothing?
No. It's currently built basically boundary to boundary, with the exception of an existing connecting road through here with parking spaces. But everything else, the building is a double-story, boundary to boundary currently.
Okay, I was just wondering. I was a bit concerned you might need an EPSD environmental assessment on there or whatever. So, but you don't, because there's nothing on there. There's no native wildlife or native trees, heritage listed. It's not heritage listed, nothing like that. You've gone through all that already. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Nora. Chris?
Thank you.
Perhaps you could do a deal with McGrath about the charging stations. They might have an interest in providing space for you can't.
Yeah.
And just over your fence.
Not a bad call. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an exception, though, isn't it, in Canberra, that you are putting a petrol station on a main road?
I would have to.
Is there an indication that you will get approval for that, or is it a bit flying a balloon at the moment?
Look, it's as with any DA, there's always risk. We've done a lot of due diligence up until this point, and we think that it's appropriately zoned. It's in the right area, in a commercial, it's in the service trades precinct. So look, I mean, we are in the hands of the EPSD there, but yeah, we just got to wait and see. I think the DA came off notification on Monday, and we're waiting on feedback now from the authorities.
Okay. No more. Oh, no, that's Chris. Okay, so thank you very much for coming along and telling us about that proposal.
That's
Fiona, it's Chris Errett, not Chris Johnson.
Oh, Chris Errett. Do you have a question, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh,
I do.
good on you, Chris. Oh, okay.
So
Chris.
just a quick question about, have you been in discussions with the traffic branch of ACT government? I'm just thinking about the access to and from the site from the eastbound lanes of Hindmarsh Drive. Because obviously you don't have a traffic light intersection there like you do at Molonglo. So I guess, I mean, what's the likelihood that people are just going to do U-turns, which is technically illegal, just to get to the site and down in front of the fire station?
Good question.
I would say highly unlikely. A lot of our customers are convenience-based, and if they were to do that and do a U-turn illegally, or even just do a legal right-hand turn and go around the back and come onto Botany Street, I think it is, and come back, it's highly unlikely. Knowing our customers, they are very much a convenience-based, often home-to-home customer who finds it convenient. We certainly wouldn't be expecting people, as you say, heading eastbound on Hindmarsh to really go out of their way to do a U-turn and come back to us. It's not really the patterns that we see, particularly when you've got with median strips through the middle. They're pretty significant barriers to people.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there's a set of traffic lights just pretty close to you. All right. Thank you, Brad and Josh, coming and talking about. I know the DA to put in a submission for the DA's now closed. It closed on the 31st, a couple of days ago. So anyway.
No problems. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right then. So, anybody want to add anything? Because we've just about done our dash. So, and if anybody's got anything, any other business, Marissa, I think I saw Marissa left. Emma, or if any MLA wants to have their 5 minutes.
I'm still here if people would like to ask me any questions.
How are you feeling? You got COVID?
Fully recovered, actually. Fully recovered. Yes, and busily working to make sure that we can get access to rapid antigen tests for disability support workers who provide in-home services and in-home aged care services. There's a lot of older people who are living in the Woden area, not just in aged care facilities, but people who are living at home and have support workers who come into their home to help them. And the ACT government is going to supply those workers with rapid antigen tests so that they can just do surveillance testing and make sure that they don't have COVID before they're going into the home of someone who is at risk. And we're doing that so that those support providers don't have to find those tests on the private market, given that they're in such short supply. But yeah, if there is anyone who has questions for me, particularly given that there will be a sitting week next week, and there will be a whole lot of things being discussed, hopefully also around things like community sports facilities in Woden.
Yeah, is it possible to have a private conversation with you over the abuse of mental health?
Sure, if you want to send an email to davidson@act.gov.au.
Yep. Yeah, excellent.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you do that, Nora. Dione has a question for you, Emma.
Oh, thanks, Fiona. Emma, I'm just wondering, do you happen to know when the Woden Access Canberra Service Centre will reopen, and why has it been closed, I think, since a week before Christmas?
Yeah, it will reopen at some point, and I'm sorry, I don't have the notes in front of me, but I did hear it being discussed the other day when it's planned to reopen. One of the difficulties we're having at the moment is the huge numbers of people in the ACT who can't go into work because they're either a close contact or they've got COVID. And that's happening across every industry and every sector. And when you look at the daily case numbers, 500-600 cases per day, and you think about the number of people that each of those cases might have been in contact with, you then also have to quarantine for a week. You can see how this is happening. I'm expecting that we're going to see quite a lot of disruption to the workforce across every industry for probably at least a couple of months until the case numbers come down from Omicron. And that's going to be felt not just with schools and Access Canberra, but also you'll see that with just regular shops and services in the community.
Thanks.
Not just on that Access Canberra one, I don't know. It's just that Woden one is accessible for people that don't have cars. I mean, I guess kids are using rideshare, we just heard, so they can go anywhere. But for people that still do use public transport, it is one that you can access, whereas some of the other ones aren't quite as accessible. I would have thought that Woden would be one that right in the middle, accessible from all around, that would be critical to keep open. Anyway, I obviously don't greater minds than mine.
That might be a good question for you to put to, to perhaps to Minister Chang about Access Canberra. But I know that they are experiencing a lot of issues with workforce at the moment. It's not the kind of job that you can easily do from home.
All right, Jude.
Hi, Emma. I was just wondering if you could, for the benefit of the public meeting, just update us on where we're at with the sporting facilities, the petition and all that sort of business, what we might expect this year with that.
Yes. Okay, so I tabled the petition about Woden needing more indoor sports facilities. That was in the December sitting week, and I'm expecting that there will be an official government response to that soon. But what's also interesting is that back in April of 2021, Jonathan Davis had a private members motion where he was asking for a long-term sports facilities management plan that would cover like a 10-year period for the whole of the ACT. And the reason he did that is because we have this constant problem where either individual sports are looking for space, and so they're going around to the sports minister, the shadow sports minister, all their local MLAs, that sort of thing, to try and get some commitments to fund what they need for their particular sport. But it's all very disconnected. And so, what we'd really like to see is a comprehensive 10-year plan that looks at the whole of the ACT and sets out a plan for we're going to need these type of facilities in these areas within this time frame, and that's what we're working to. If we're able to do that, that would mean that individual sporting associations have some certainty about when they might see upgrades or new facilities and where those things will be, and so they don't have to spend time, lobbying for something that is actually on the radar but is just a couple of years away or something like that. The other thing that's really important out of that motion was support for a peak body for community sports. Now, there's a whole lot of small community sporting bodies and associations who are very much run by volunteers and don't have the lobbying and advocacy capacity of big sporting groups. And if they're able to band together and work collectively, that would enable them to achieve things and to be able to share facilities and share knowledge a lot more easily. So we're looking for a bit of support for that as well. Now, that was a motion that was passed in April of last year and is due to come back to the Assembly. Well, it's due now. So I'm hopeful that we're going to see a response from the Sports Minister that sets out, what's going to happen with those things. And if that's the case, it seems logical that Woden should be, pretty high up the priority list for things like indoor sports facilities and a plan for what's happening with aquatic and swimming facilities as well.
Thanks very much.
Emma, we wrote to the committee, the standing committee, because we've got the pool petition and the indoor sports one. So we had those two petitions go in. And so we asked if they could do an inquiry into what happened to our sporting facilities, like our recreation precinct, an inquiry into the whole demise and, what can be done about it. So, perhaps, Jonathan's motion may address it somehow, but it is still a broader issue for where these things might go. You can just pick people can just pick a spot here or a spot there, but it's still not fitting into a broader plan that connects everything.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for with that sports facilities management plan. Something that takes into account where is the expected growth across the whole of the ACT, who actually needs access to what kind of facilities, and takes into account that we need a variety of facilities so that people don't have to travel to the other side of the city to play a small volunteer-run community sport. Because it's, as we know, if you don't have easy access to transport and you're playing sports, on the weekend or after hours, public transport isn't always going to meet your needs to get you all the way across town. So, basketball ACT, I hear them talk about this frequently. The example I give is that, having basketball courts in Belconnen is fantastic, but they still need somewhere for the Woden teams to train locally during the week. And so, a good comprehensive sports facilities management plan would take into account all of those things.
I went to Melbourne for the last week and I couldn't help it. I visited aquatic centres and basketball stadiums. And I got some good ideas about how we could do it. Like, there's some really good ones out there.
Yeah, there are some really great examples. Yeah, so I think, you know, one of the keys is making sure that that when we're making decisions to invest in sports infrastructure, that we can see how that fits into a big picture plan, and we're not doing a piecemeal approach to developing our facilities.
All right, thank you, Emma. Anybody else got any questions for Emma? Oh, I have one more. We've got 7 minutes. Emma, what are we going to do about, you know, you were here at the beginning of the discussion about the having life on the streets sort of thing and the active fronts. Can you give us any advice on where we go with all this? Because, you know, it's been a long time, and just having that community centre disconnected by 6 lanes of public transport, I'm just not really sure that this is being looked at properly.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand what you know, when you picture what that might look like, and you know, getting ready to cross the road, particularly if you've got mobility issues or things like that, you know, it could be quite daunting. I think this is why, you know, that district planning process is so important, to see that it's done the right way. So I think, you know, I think it's good that you're having the conversation about how this all works, and I think that we do need to continue to have that conversation. I'm not sure that I've got any immediate answers for you off the top of my head, but I would like to continue working on how we make this work better for, you know, for connecting our different precincts, so that it's easy for that active movement to flow from one area to the next. So I think, yeah, if we can continue having the conversation, I think that would be good.
Will do. We've got a whole new year of it. All right, thanks, Emma. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yes,
Have you got any other portfolios that you're covering that you haven't covered with updates, Emma?
I actually have 9 portfolios. So I'm the Minister for Mental Health, Minister for Justice Health, Minister for Disability, and Assistant Minister for Seniors and Veterans and Families and Community Services, which includes carers, youth justice, volunteers, emergency relief, community recovery from COVID, and that's everything. Yeah.
I think you said youth in all of that. I'm not sure, but
youth justice. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the new CIT is going to have a youth foyer at the bottom of it. This is just another thing. If we're going to be supporting youth, at-risk youth of dropping out of education, I think it's all about trying to keep them in the education system, which is all really terrific. So it'd be interesting to know how we are supporting the youth, you know, like all these facilities and recreation and keeping them busy and active was always a good thing, I thought. The ground floor of the CIT, I think, is really important too, because that's where we are active at the ground level. And so having a youth foyer there, I'm not sure is the best thing. We should be perhaps having the live music venue that you keep advocating for. Thank you. But, you know, do we really want to have the live music venue on the 4th floor or something? Wouldn't we want that to be a space that is accessible at ground level with cafes and bars and fun?
I think these are really good points. I can't say that I'm across the detail of, you know, what's going on what floor of the plan CIT in Woden at the moment. But I do think so. I don't know if the youth foyer is a ground floor plan or if that's actually planned to be, you know, upstairs somewhere. It may well be. The word foyer doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually on the ground floor.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we haven't heard anything from the CIT. They have not spoken to us really at all, apart from me screaming blue murder about the site earlier on, being in the shadows and not really having any campus or anything around it that's got some. So, you know, we've raised those issues, but outside of that, nothing. So it would be really good to be able to be involved, because like everything, I think the decisions all get made and then they come and tell us, frankly.
Yeah, I know there was some consultation that went through your say. I'm not sure whether there's been a presentation to Woden Community Council yet, or might be worth asking for one.
Yeah, there'll be like you know, a slide, and it will have here's where the CIT is, you know, an L shape. But as far as what's in it,
so is your disability portfolio covering Human Rights Commission with their disability area there? They've also got a disability commissioner as well as a Human Rights Commissioner in the same department. Is that you? Do you cover that?
So yes, we have. So we've got a number of oversight bodies in the ACT covering disability, which includes the Human Rights Commission that Minister Shane is responsible for. But we also have official visitors for people with disability, and they go to residential places where people with disability are living, and make sure that those people understand their rights and can follow up on any issues. And I get regular reports from them about the kinds of systemic issues that they're seeing and what can be done about it. We also have a senior practitioner in the ACT who specifically looks at restrictive practices and is working to help providers, including schools, you know, aged care providers who may have people with disability living there, and disability support providers, to reduce the use of restrictive practices.
Yeah, and elders abuse and all of that would fall under you too?
Yes, actually, in my responsibilities as Minister for Seniors, yes.
Good. So I'll send you an email there too.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Emma.
Okay, thanks, Nora. Last question of the day goes to Dione.
Oh, thanks, Fiona. Emma, I have another question for you. You mentioned district planning. Do we still have the possibility to give input? Because it's obviously very interesting, I think, for Woden, if it can. Thanks.
Yeah. So that would be Minister Gentleman's area, and I'm not sure what the timelines are. I know that there was a lot of work late last year with you know, various consultations and workshops on district plans. So I'm not sure where those processes are up to at the moment. But yeah, that would be Minister Gentleman's office. So I would be checking there.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, I think the legislation, the new legislation, is going to come out first, and then they will proceed with, you know, the elements under the new legislation, which the district level planning will be part of that. So, yeah.
Oh, so does that mean like we'll get to have input after the legislation has been made? Is that the idea?
So, Dione, I hope so. Okay, well, look at that, 9:01, that's pretty good. Thank you, everybody, coming to our first meeting of the year, and we might do a bit of stuff by email and polls and stuff to get people's views about what we want out of Woden. So encourage everybody to join the email list so we can maybe do it that way, and we'll go to the shops events. Thank you. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Fiona.
Thanks,
See
Chris.
ya.
Long time no see. Long time no hear.
That's big.